to volunteer to assist him because he's leaving to go back to Canada on Sunday, and I'm going to miss him terribly. If anybody would like to volunteer for his committee, I would really appreciate it. Like I said, we are a community. I want everybody to feel like they can help in any way, shape, or form, and that their concerns count. So I hand it over to David.
Before just to reemphasize, please let him finish his presentation. We'd like to go through all of our presentations first without any questions being asked. And if you could hold your questions to the end of all of the presentations, that would be really appreciated. That way we can get through all the pertinent information we need to go.
I just want to say that we've taken a couple our super projects. We have some big projects in front of us, and we don't want to piecemeal them. We want to be able to present these projects as a whole, and then bring back to you, solutions and how we're going to deal with it financially. So, go ahead, David.
Yeah. So as everybody's been discussing, we have major maintenance issues. I mean, if we go back historically, I guess some things have just been allowed to carry on probably a little bit too long, and so now we're forced to look at some significant major repairs. Some other issues, of course, everybody knows about. There's the seawall, as well as the lattice in the front, and I would say just general concrete. The concrete envelope around the building needs some repairs in certain locations. And what has come more to light in the shorter term is that the roof seems to have some issues. And that's the one that I haven't quite got a total handle on that. But I'll talk through all three issues, and we're more advanced on some than others. I'm going to start with the seawall because that one we've been talking about for quite a while, for well over a year. As you know, we've done a lot of different surveys. We've had actual people in the water look at it. And we've come back to the shareholders with some options, including just rebuilding the seawall, which is an extremely expensive alternative. And so we did go look further into what can we do as a temporary maintenance approach to the seawall and allow us to build up some reserves and delay reconstruction of the seawall hopefully for several years. So part of our work in the last while has been explore those options. So I mean, it's extremely complex issue. It's not a simple one. It's governed by at least, I think, 3 or 4 different governmental bodies, from the city up to the federal government. So it's a complex issue. I've put together just a little synopsis here of what the things I will be talking about. So, in terms of maintenance, and this is what's reviewed in the document, in terms of maintenance issues or refurbishment issues, there are 3 options, 3 large options. And we have, in some cases, we have more than one bid for each option. The one that is the traditional maintenance issue is the best example is if you go next to the Blair House, you'll see what was done. And that was a maintenance issue, where they rebuilt portions of the seawall to extend its useful life. The seawall has several components in there, and I'm not going to go into all the details, and I mean, it's a steep learning curve, but there are several components. The Blair House did the type of refurbishment that, and I'll be straight up, that the engineers like, because it's a traditional, straightforward, where they rebuild the cap, the big cement top, and they replace some of those angled, they're called batter piles, the angled piles, and they do some other sealing. That's not an inexpensive option. It's about $100, given all the other ancillary activities, because we have to lift the pavers, you have to excavate behind, the ficus shrubs have to be removed, additional fencing has to be put in, permitting is required, what have you. That's not an inexpensive option. It's about, as I estimate, $175,000 to $200,000 to get that work done. I said it's a traditional one. The engineer supports that option. The concerns we have are that it involves putting new structure over old structure. What will not be changed in that option are the vertical C panels. These are the actual wall, which is where the water comes against. You actually are putting new cement structures over existing structures. The existing structures, the older existing structures, have a limited life. We don't know how long, but they are well over. They're well over probably 2/3 or 3/4 of their expected life expectancy. So we may spend that amount of money, and find 5 years from now, if you have to replace the old structure, of course you have to lift all the new stuff that went on top of it. Doesn't seem a terribly logical way to approach it. So that one is out there. The second most expensive option is if anybody's been out there, the immediate issue is the erosion. The most serious erosion is happening back in that corner of the property. If by the barbecue area, if you've taken a look at it, and that's accelerating as the time goes on. So, in discussing with some of the technical people that have come, if we could stop that erosion, and I think some attempts have been made over the past years. We've dumped fill into there, and it just washes out again. It's pointless because the seals, the cavities there's spaces opened up between the seals, between the pillars and the walls, and so it just flows out in a matter of weeks. So if we could seal that and we could stop the erosion, we would buy ourselves some time, because I don't think, and most people don't think the existing concrete's not going to collapse into the water tomorrow. So that's an option. This involves digging behind the wall, excavating behind the wall, putting a fabric, like a fabric behind the wall, and then backfilling against that fabric. And this should stop the erosion. Again, this is a traditional method. The concern with this method is that if there's erosion or underneath the wall, and we suspect there could be, it's hard to tell because it'd be right at the base of the wall, this method won't stop the erosion that goes underneath the wall. It stops at the cracks above the footing. So we looked at a third option, and this is kind of it's a newer activity where the concept is it's a polyurethane injection system. There's a little bit of a description in there. It comes in as liquid form. It's pumped in under pressure through drilled holes, and it actually adheres to the concrete, the land side of the concrete wall, seawall, and it is intended to mix with soil, and it forms a barrier. Now, I have talked with this company. I've talked with this company a few times. They have done a lot of work in and around South Florida. They were not able to give us an exact example of working on a seawall. They've done some of the major hotels on the beach, but they've done similar water holding tanks where they've had the same kind of problem with water eroding away soil and stuff like that. They're confident that it can be done, and so the quote for the full job was $55,000, but after some discussion, because it's not a completely tested methodology, they're willing to come in and do a trial, and we would evaluate whether that would work. And so, I mean, I guess I'm coming down to and leaving this to the end, because that's what our recommendation as a board is, to attempt to try to repair this. And our concerns are first and foremost at that corner, the northern corner of the wall, where the erosion is actually starting to impact on the property next door. So we would attempt to trial this method in there for $5,500, and then give it at least a period of time to evaluate it. I don't know how long a period of time, but we would very quickly see whether or not the backfill soil is starting to go back out into the water again. So that's where we are now. I think we've explored all the possible options. We have not, the third option, the polyurethane option, we have not gone to engineers to discuss it. This is a maintenance issue. It doesn't require permitting, doesn't require any drawings. It's just purely a maintenance issue. So there's no additional costs from the city for permits or engineering drawings or what have you. We have not gone to any engineer with this method because we're pretty confident the engineer would not agree with it because it's non-traditional. I mean, they really will want to go as to the concrete structural methodology.
Okay, remember, hold your question.
Yeah, so-
Still moving on.
so-
Please, wait till
Yeah,
all presentations.
so that I'm just going to go on there. So that's it. Pretty well all the notes are there. I'm going to go on to the roof issue. Well, do we want to?
Just finish all the presentations.
Yeah.
It's almost 10 o'clock and we haven't even got.
Yeah, I'm just going to go on to the roof issue because I think you have to understand, as Terry was saying, I think you have to understand some of the costs involved here. The roof issue is our roof needs at the very minimum repair. I have not been, I've been bounced back and forth and trying to determine exactly when the roof was actually last done. I first thought I was under the impression it had been done possibly 15 or 20 years ago, which would tell us that it's at its end of its natural life, which would then find we could go ahead and repair the roof. We could go ahead and bear the expense of a new roof, but that doesn't appear to be the case.
It was 5 or 6 years.
So if it's 5 or 6 years, we have not been able to find the documentation on the roof. Normally, a roof would still have a warranty at the very minimum of 10 years.
If it was maintained.
If it was maintained and the warranty was maintained. But that doesn't appear to be the case. And so we have an issue. We have estimates on the roof to repair, put a new roof in. They range from $70,000 to $90,000. That's for a brand new, complete roof. And I proceeded with getting those estimates on the assumption that our roof was 15 to 20 years old. This newer information, which I just got in this week, is going to, I think, make me want to go back and try to see what we can do but repair. We'll not be able to leverage any warranty because it hasn't been maintained and we don't even have the documentation on it. So what we need to do is probably bring somebody in and see what we can do. Again, maybe it could be patching. I mean, when you bring in roofing guys in, the first thing they want to do is, of course, they want a big dollar job. So it's hard to focus them on a repair. But I think we can do that. And as according to Rita's point, I think I'm out of town as of Sunday, but I would appreciate if we could have some help. And I think I'd like to talk to one or two previous board members who may have some information and be able to fill me in on that missing information. So that's the roof issue. The third issue is where we're probably least advanced in terms of knowing exactly what costs may be associated with it, and Terry will be taking the lead on it. But that is just the general concrete work around the building. And we're still working on that. I don't know if you want to add anything to
Yeah, we did. We paid for an engineer $5,000 to do a shop drawing. And one of the things that I was concerned about is that they're not blocks. We're talking about the filigree panels, the lovely, that makes our building so unique, that runs along the corridors. And if you've noticed, you start to see crack. Okay, that it's rusting and it's popping. And my floor is very bad. Some other floors are worse. Unfortunately, we kind of took the wrong approach when we had an engineer give us drawings. It was to take the entire panel out, throw it away, and put a whole new panel in for the entire building. And we got quotes for this. And that is, I happened to look at the plans. I have been working with that particular structural engineer for over 15 years. I immediately called him on the phone. He said he did not agree that that was the method to use, and that restoration is what you do. And so immediately called a restoration company, and he's been out here, and if you might see some chipping away, and he's been doing this for 30 years. And what we're going to do, he's working on a proposal where he's going to give us, there's the A, B, and C. The A panels might have to be removed, okay, which of course you know you're dealing with, you know, lots of heavy equipment and so on, but and if they're also tied in, okay, to our cantilevered slabs, okay, so this is quite difficult. That's why we don't want to remove anything if we can't. So they're going to make an analysis, as a couple of them have to be removed. Then there's going to be some that we call the B, where they're going to be restored. And it means that you take off the concrete, you go in, you go around the rebar, okay, you restore it, and then you fill it in. And then there's the C, where they're more minor, that we have to go in and you have to make sure that it's sealed and that it's preventative. I guess in 2002, George McMahon mentioned that we need to be doing this. This should be done on a regular basis every year. And I think that once we get this taken care of, that will be the solution, that someone comes in and, you know, looks at everything and they'll deal with it. I didn't realize, but we had the idea of removing all of the panels throughout the building was costing us upwards of $2.2 million, okay, with the quotes that I found here. We're working, yeah. That is not, if you understand, that would not be a realistic approach to do any of this. So I'm working on we'll be aggressive with it. I think that if we tackle, you know, removing the immediate, you know, anything that's immediately dangerous, it's not going to fall in, okay, but we can do this in stages as well. Okay, so the idea is that we want to get back to you with these quotes as a whole, and so we know how to deal with them as a community.
Yeah. But as a short term, we'd like to, at least because we have this issue with the seawall, I'd like to make a motion to proceed to authorize us to expend $5,500 to test the seawall polyurethane maintenance approach.
Shouldn't we have some comments or discussion first before we make the
Well,
motion?
This is a board decision.
I think what he's asking for is just to be able to get the technology to make sure that it works before we even go into anything that would be a stockholder's decision. Right. So again, because we want to present everything as a whole.
Well, let me ask your question. Just ask your question.
I just want to be sure you're aware of where the fishing dock is, how far that wall has pushed forward. And you can see the evidence where the railing going from the parking lot out to the corner post in the water it's an attachment to the corner post out in the water, has pulled away. You can also see the evidence by the size of the cracks in the asphalt have increased over the past couple of years significantly, especially this past year. Mm-hmm. So that wall is pushing outward. Just want you to be aware of it, because I don't know if this polyurethane injection system is going to be strong enough to prevent that wall from continuing to move outward.
Well, part of what the reason for the trial, the test, is to determine how effective that methodology will be. So it's an expenditure. I mean, I can't, I'm just being totally honest with you. I don't know.
I think that will prevent further erosion, yeah, but that may not prevent
we know long term the wall has to be repaired. Yeah. We know that. So the approach we've taken, and it's been going on for a year, is to find what maintenance can we do at a reasonable cost to buy us 5 to 8 years of time.
Where we can save up.
Where our treasurer can give us some financial alternatives.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tamara.
Would it be okay if you guys approved $55,000 today with the condition that your test worked, and that way, if the board decides that it's sufficient, we don't have to have another meeting, you guys can go ahead and fix it.
Well, I think this board is just, please just to go for the 5,500 and then come back with the information, and then we can make a more fulsome decision.
Since I did a lot of the investigation before, and speaking with people coming out and checking the seawall, and looking at the different alternatives, all of them have said that you need to shore up the wall because it is falling forward. So just putting this polyurethane behind isn't going to shore up the wall. And they've said that the actual panels are in very good condition. That's not the problem. It's actually the fact that the top capping is cracking and giving way. That's why the holes and the posts that hold the panels in, they've all eroded away from the original concrete stuff. But if we shore up the posts and the cap, we should be right for many, many years. They've all said about 30 years. So and they were the ones that I spoke to, and all the records are in there if they're still there. Or I can get copies of.
Well, we have all the engineers. I mean, that documentation is there.
The engineers want to do one thing, but the actual people that came out to give the quotes.
We have the quotes. They're all.
Most of those I got.
Yeah, the details are there. The details are there.
Well, there's one Coastal Marine, I think it's called. They were the best ones in understanding of our situation. Yes, they did the one next door, and a lot of the ones around here because he is a local that lives on the island, and he understands fully what the conditions are in making sure that the wall is going to be lasting the longest, at least giving us 20 to 30 years extra life expectancy.
Well, I mean, this is. I'm not going to claim any expertise in this. I mean, I don't see quite the numbers that you're discussing. From the quotes themselves, I mean, there's limited warranties on it. But the issue is putting that new structure over old structure. I'm not sure. The original engineer's report, which was the survey, including the underwater survey, actually said the vertical C panels, the concrete panels, are probably on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best and 1 being the worst, are at a 2. So
that's different to the ones.
Well, that's in the documentation, and I mean, we certainly can review it. But that's so. I'm skeptical about the long-term life of the other components. The vertical king piles.
They're the ones that are giving us the problem,
and those are our quotes at $175,000 to $200,000 are not replacing those vertical piles.
No, they're fixing them up and shoring
them.
Just
patching.
What's done at the front here.
Yeah. Well, I'll be very honest with you. That's still an option. That's the option the engineers prefer because it's a very traditional repair option.
Swimming pools have been around a long time, and they all have their problems where they give way.
Yeah, it's a maintenance thing. It's a different approach entirely. So.
Do we know what the condition of the dead men tiebacks are? The dead men tiebacks.
Yeah.
The tiebacks. The tiebacks
into the interior of our.
The tiebacks were not called into question in any of the engineers' reports.
They were all to be replaced in that quote from Coastal Marine. All the tiebacks.
Okay, guys, if there are any questions before we move on, we still have more material.
Yeah.
Another thing, Dave, on number 2, I tried number 2 on the property out in Chesapeake Bay, and your concern is exactly what happened. You need flushed out from underneath it, so I don't think it's an effective approach.
Yeah. I mean, I'd just like to make a comment. I think right now, and it has been for quite some time, and I had pointed this out previously, that the erosion that we've got going and the holes that we have here are a dangerous situation, especially since we have children in this building now. And even an adult, some of them, you could step into it up to your hips. This erosion needs to be stopped. And I mean, I'm in total agreement with at least trying this pressure situation, this pumping under pressure. They're willing to let us do this rather than do the whole job. And I think that it's something that we need to seriously consider doing. We've got to do something. You can't keep dumping rock and concrete and bags in it.
I couldn't agree more, especially in the corner that David was mentioning over by the barbecue grill. We got to jump on that because that's not just our property we're affecting now. You look at the people next door, they have yellow tape up on that corner, and because they think they're starting to have some issues from us. So I think that's a great place to start an experiment, and it shows that we're leaning forward in the foxhole on doing something.
What I'm suggesting is that nobody wants to throw good money away on this, but at the same time, I'm not sure we're prepared to, at this point, to face a $200,000 plus expenditure, knowing that we have the potentially roof costs and concrete costs. So $5,500 we could afford. It may buy us some time, and there's a risk. I mean, there's no doubt. You cannot try this without I understand that there's a risk involved, a financial risk of $5,500. But I think given the time of year we're at now, and the rains are starting, if we don't attempt to try to stop the problem, we're going to have a very serious problem by the end of this season.
George had a question.
Oh, sorry.
Well, not a question, just a comment. About 10 years ago, we did the same thing with a different type of process, but we drilled the holes and pumped under pressure all the way along the pool, because the pool was eroding underneath and washing out the seawall, and it seemed to have stopped it.
Okay. Well, okay, so let's move forward with that motion.
And I seconded it.
And she seconded it, so we're going to move forward.
Ayes, nays?
Huh?
Ayes, nays?
Oh, yay. Yay? Yeah. What? Yay? Yay?
Yes.
Okay. Unanimous.
Okay. All right. My laryngitis treasurer is going to try to tell you what she's up to.
So we've been looking at the budget and we've been trying to look at ways. Obviously, our goal is to not pay more than we have to, but to still get good value and quality services in the building. And if there's any way to cut costs, then we're looking at that too. We're looking, what's short term, what's long term. And one of the things, and this was brought up from the last board as a suggestion, and Tamara had brought it up about our cable service in the building. And right now we're spending about $30,000 a year just to have basic cable in the building provided by Atlantic Broadband. And so what I've been working on, and what I had Brent working on, so I guess I'm working on it now, is looking at AT&T as a possible alternative, because they had just come to the island about 6 months ago, and they have a box just a block down, and I actually got AT&T service in my unit, and we're looking at potentially cutting that cost by half if we went with AT&T for basic cable service in the building. So that may be something that we might want to consider. As far as I know, each unit has an actual, it's through the telephone line. So each unit has a box already in place that they would just have to test to make sure that all of the connections were functioning connections. And they're coming out to test a couple of units just to make sure there's the viability of being able to do that. But that may be something that they would entertain, is doing a bulk contract with us. I think that the Atlantic Broadband service is in place until August. And so this may be a way for us to cut some costs in the building and provide those monies towards reserves, because we really do need to build up our reserves in the building. So that's one thing that I'm looking at to help us cut some costs. Also, we're having, and it's healthy to have bids, every couple of years to review how much money we're spending on things and if there's alternative services or if they want to rebid on the current service that they're doing. And so we're looking at landscaping and having them rebid for us and then having another company come in and bid so that we can look at saving some monies there as well. Also, another item that we're looking at is that we have hot water tanks that service the washer and the washer on each floor in a shareholder's storage unit. And recently we had one burst and Terry's floor. And we discovered two things from this experience. One is that we really shouldn't have common access equipment in storage, shareholder storage, assigned storage units. And two, is that the most efficient way to repair anything? Because it costs $425 to fix that hot water tank, or to replace that hot water tank with another one. And we have 10 in the building, and one has already burst in the past couple of years as well, correct?
Yeah.
And so an alternative that I want to look into is actually having an on-demand tankless water heater installed. We could look at one servicing 5 floors, and we would only need 2 high-capacity on-demand water tanks. The piping is already there from floor to floor because there's a hot water heater there, and that would eliminate having to go into your storage units to service any hot water tanks. And also we'd be able to save on our electrical bills by having an on-demand water tankless water heater. So yeah, hold your questions, please. And so that's one other item that we're looking at. Now, that also raised another concern, and that's around our pest control services. We have probably about 40% of the shareholders that are not allowing the pest control service into their units. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, you may want to speak to this, but we have to allow, like in our lease agreements, we have to have pest control service, and you have to have it for your unit. So from my understanding, there are 1 or 2 shareholders in the building that have contracted their own pest control. But in the meantime, we're paying for 59 units to be sprayed, whether they get sprayed or not. And so, and when we took out this hot water tank on Terry's floor, there were numerous egg casings, cockroach casings. And I don't know if you guys are into food safety or not, but one cockroach casing, egg casing, could yield about 40 cockroaches. So we have a situation where we're not spraying in the storage units. And I was actually shocked about that. I thought we were. So we have to have access. We have to have access to units, and we have to have access to storage units because there's liabilities involved. If you had a fire in your unit, we're thinking more along the lines of safety as well. So if there was a fire in your unit, we wouldn't be able to access your unit. For us to control a pest problem in the building, we need to have access to those storage units and to your individual units. So we will be asking for that access going forward. And we have to look at we have no choice. You have to be able to let folks in to spray your unit. Right? That's not an option. We really do need to do that. Because I go catatonic when I see one cockroach. And I don't think that it's fair for all the shareholders if they're getting one unit sprayed and then the next one beside it is not. They're just going to go to the next unit. Right? So that's something that we're going to look at getting another quote on too. So, you're paying for it. Why aren't we taking advantage of that? So that's one of the cost-cutting measures. We've also done some office improvements, and again, as we stated earlier, we had no idea that they were going to sign independent contracts and that we were going to try to improve conditions for them. One of the things that we have done is that we installed a time clock so that they would clock in and out. So we would be able to see time cards and know what they were actually working and that they were here and we asked them to be here. And so that was an improvement that we made. Also, we got another set of walkie-talkies with a 25-mile range so that Bernard would be able to carry that with him at all times. So there would be no time where we couldn't find him or contact him. So we did that as well. We also replaced the refrigerator in the office because it wasn't working and it's not fair for, the contractors not to have a working fridge. So put your question for 1 sec. We're also looking at, improving our equipment like new blowers and high pressure washers so that we can have that available. And if we go to a maintenance manager, then we would have those resources available for it. And we may not need it. So that's something we'll hold off on making extra purchases for until we find out if that's something that we do need down the road. All right, so that's just an idea of some of the items that we're working on. Also, the privacy screens, we understand that some of the privacy screens need to be replaced, probably with the galvanized steel screens as opposed to the wood. And we understand some of the little pieces of concrete are falling off of the balconies. So those things we're aware of, and we did a survey, or we were in the process of doing a survey to find out which units needed the work done first, so we were prioritizing that work for you. So again, just trying to put some cost-cutting measures in place for you, because ultimately, we have to look at, are we doing special assessments, and how often are we going to have to do those? Are we going to have to raise maintenance fees? So these are all considerations that we're trying to, be as conservative with your monies as possible. All right, now you can ask me a question. Okay, first Tamara, then Lloyd.
I had a question about the time clock in and that. Do you think that had an impact on why the staff was not wanting to sign independent contractor, because that seems like an employee kind of measure?
Well, I think what it came down to really tomorrow was around accountability. Again, just as a point of example,
when they were here and when they weren't.
Yeah, we never knew when they were here, and as shareholders, we needed to have accessibility to to the office, etc.
And their basis of payment for their contracts, it was a number of hours worked as opposed to other deliverable when there's a concrete deliverable. So their basis of payment is hours. Regardless, they should have been submitting a timesheet or an invoice. Well, I'm not sure.
We have no records of anything.
They have timesheets for everything. They've always had timesheets.
Yeah, well,
unfortunately, sometimes those timesheets did not record accurately when they were here, because I can testify several times. And even so, I was in the office one morning when somebody was supposed to be here at a certain hour, and it was a half an hour later, and they're just showing up. But they still put in. So it's a way to.
The only reason I'm bringing it up because I do think there was a communication breakdown, and, from what you guys said and how they reacted, and maybe some of those little things.
Unfortunately, they had an opportunity to talk to every single one of us, and they did not.
No one mentioned that the time clock was an issue at all.
They muttered among themselves. So.
Yeah, but we talked to them and asked them. But I know. I think it's only being looking out for your interest, and we also found out that there was work being done for people during these hours, and it just made everyone accountable, for us to make sure that we were getting our money.
All right.
Yes, pest control. You just mentioned that 40% of the units are not allowing that's about 24 apartments.
Mm-hmm.
How are we allowing that? Wouldn't that-
That's a great question.
Because, isn't it mandated, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the office has to have a key to every unit, and if they, I mean, this is not the same circumstance. If God forbid there's a fire or some emergency, and we can't get in the unit, we can call a locksmith or break the door down.
Yes.
But, okay, that's, no, I don't think that's ever happened yet. However, how could we allow 24 units? We're spending all this money. How could we allow 24 units to jeopardize our financial responsibility as well as our health? How are we allowing that?
I know, Lloyd. Well, that's what we're trying to course correct. And I think, Michael, you can speak to this, but the actual exterior locks do not belong to the individual shareholders' units, correct?
Well, that's correct. The exterior locks, the exterior of the door, those are all common element issues. They're in section 9 of your house rules. There is a provision that says that you have to allow the pest control to come in for the to prevent cockroaches, which I'm not a fan of at all, and all those other vermin. It's pest and vermin control. There is a provision in the house rules which says that if you give written notice not to do it, but that would then affect the overall. You would no longer be responsible for it, but you would need written notice that you are getting some treatment by someone. So that's the trade-off. If you don't give that written notice and you don't provide like a receipt or something like that to show that you've done the thing, otherwise you're trying to preserve the entire, the cleanliness of the entire building and to avoid these pests.
The written notice exempts, I think, termites and ants. You can't opt out of that if those show up.
There is a small exception there. So essentially, yes, and you don't want to get into a situation though where if someone doesn't allow you in, you wait till they're not home and open the door. I mean, that's obviously not a good situation because it doesn't fall under emergency issues, but it is a maintenance issue. So after sufficient time, I believe that it's 30 days notice. You give them that if you don't show us proof that this has been, if you don't allow us in, we're going to come in 30 days. That's what the state law is, that you can go ahead and go in at that point for maintenance issues, but it is a month delayed from the giving of notice till the actually being allowed to enter for that purpose.
Are we going to require then these 40% to submit that documentation?
Yes.
And if they don't, we're going to go forward with what this gentleman just said?
Yes, it's just like the boat docks. When I had a boat, I had to present proof of insurance and that I own the boat to the office. It's going to be the same thing. We're going to require...
We're going to be diligent about that, right? Because pests are nasty.
Yes.
I would like to suggest that we get some intelligent pest control people. These people come in their apartment, and that's why we want to be sure that we're there. They use the pest wand to close our kitchen cabinet doors. So that's not respectful. It's damaging. I told the guy over my bathroom window over the tub, I said, I think that there may be, a way for them to come in there. He sprayed the whole window, the screen and everything. Just wanted the perimeter done. These people are not respectful of your personal property and they don't know what they're doing. So let's get somebody that knows what they're doing.
That's what we're gonna have.
And I gave a referral to somebody to call Brenda from a pest control company that I know personally.
I'll
re-give it. Also, I think that Brenda told me that our phone system is not with voice over internet protocol, and that's why we had a $4,000 phone bill last year. I don't know why that is. We should have VIOP and not spend long distance calls. We can save money there.
Well, that's what I said. We're checking into. Joe, you had a comment?
There's issues why it cannot be VIOP for one thing. And it's not just the office phone bill that's $4,000. You have to have phone for the alarm. Can't be VIOP. Or it can, but I don't know if it's going to be as reliable. You have the lines for the intercom, and then it's the office. So it's a lot more than just the office that you're paying for.
Okay, but we could probably have one line to service the alarm system without long distance.
No, you can't. It has to be totally separate lines for every system.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But the office phone, where we make phone calls out of,
Office phone is one thing.
could be VIOP.
We can look at that.
I have one other comment regarding the pest control. You said that you were going to be looking for landscaping. You should do the pest control also.
Oh, no.
I am one of the 40% that do not allow, because it's toxic stuff and I have babies. So I have a valid reason, and I'm not going to allow you to do it until you have a company, maybe there is a company that has some product that's safer, but right now, no.
Well, let me find that out. Like, I mean, all of this is stuff that we've been looking into with Brenda's involved, and so now I have to look at what she actually has done, what I can find in there, and move forward with it. Because, I mean, I understand your concern, and if there's a company that is professional to point to.
And plus, I have pest control in my office, so I have no problem using pest control, but it's in my house with my babies. When they come to my office, areas where there's rugs or carpet, they'll spray, they don't care. So they have that toxic into the carpet and it just sits there. That's why I don't want it in my house.
Okay, well, let me see if you have any idea, if anyone of you have any ideas,
Right.
or any service that you want to recommend.
We're open to.
If I can finish mine, because I wanted to comment on on-demand hot water systems are great. I've installed many of them myself. They're not too hard to do, and we're not going to be paying to heat a tank of water 24/7. That's right. One $350, probably about $350 per unit for the parts and stuff will do it.
Okay.
And
Give
you
her the
can probably
information.
service 2 or 3 floors with one.
Well,
Of the washers and dryers. But I want you to understand that you need to have a filter before it, and that filter needs to be changed like monthly, and they're about $10 a filter.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the long run, that's probably, because I mean, if you have a hot water tank in your storage unit and you have to have access to it, so that means that there has to be a path to get to that unit. You can't store anything on top of it.
You put it right in front of the washer.
That. And so if we take those out and replace it with a more efficient meter, and you know, we may even be able to get a tax credit on that too. So these are all things that I want to explore and look at our costs so that, you know, we're looking long term to be able to save us some money here.
When they did the laundry down here on the bottom floor, we had it installed because I organised that with Brenda. So we put in, so there's an example, and it cost us $150 for the unit, and then the plumbing costs of doing it. All it was taking out the old tank and putting it in. So if anyone wants to see what they look like, it's sitting in the laundry on the ground floor.
Okay.
I would just ask, if you're going to wrap up my section, but I would just ask that if you do have any great services, and this is something that we had started to ask of Christina, is that if you have services that you think would benefit the building, then please let us know. We're talking about, you know, replacing the canvas, and you know, I think Daryl has a company that he could recommend to us for fixing that. You know, anything that you think that could be of service to us, please let us know. One thing that, you know, one of the things that, like, closing the shutters, so a service that would come in and do that, because, you know, as a liability, we couldn't have Fenard doing that. We'd asked them to stop doing anything like that to the units because of the liability issue of going out on the ledge or what have you. So any services, we'd like to start putting a Rolodex of those cards together so that, you know, going forward, if you've had a great experience with this service, then you can come in the office and say, hey, I need someone for Windows, do you have any ideas? And then we can actually, you know, almost like a concierge, we can give you some of those companies that have been used and have the testimonials from other shareholders in the building. All right?
With that, just a follow-up, and this is my final comment. I am diligently working with the Michaels on getting all of our corporate documents up and compliant, and that is forthcoming very shortly. So just please be patient. We are up to our necks in alligators and animals and cockroaches, and so we thank you very much for your patience. I'd like to get a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Just one question.
Okay, sorry.
One comment. Okay. Scott Rose, 1004. If anyone takes a look at the real estate in this on assignment,
they'll realize that we are in the prime position on this island. This is it, the location. We're 2 acres. And if you look at what places are being sold for and what our units are being sold for, there's a considerable difference. And that's because the market value for this building is not the park. It's not the location. We have a better location. We need to invest in this asset. And for those folks who, especially for those folks, this is their primary place to live, we all need to invest. Those of us that come for a few months are more than willing to invest in this asset. But this asset it never stays the same. It either grows or it dies, like any corporation, any business, any entity. So we need to invest. I'm more than willing to invest in this. Maybe someday I'll be lucky enough to live here all the time. But I think everybody needs to really be conscious of that for a few $1,000 you put into this will reap you so much more money down the road if you choose to sell or leave it to somebody or whatever the case may be. But this is a primary asset for you, for many people. We need to invest in it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank, before we adjourn, I just want to thank this team of board members that they have worked so hard to get us where we are and to get all the information to you. And there are other stockholders here that I have seen that have taken the initiative to fix things that weren't being fixed. And I want to thank them personally and from the other stockholders, because I know it means a lot to me, and I'm sure it means a lot to everybody here. So thank you to everybody. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second the motion.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
I want to focus on the roof. I'd like to get to the bottom of the roof. That's to me
I have a lot of experience in coatings. I used to sell coatings.
Well, because you see, I was working on the impression that, okay, well, you know, if you know you've reached a natural, if the